Hey, thanks so much for supporting our program. So, some things that I thought you'd want to know about. It turns out your cell phone company, in all probability, has been selling your user data, specifically your location data, as in where you are every minute of every day, where you've gone, where you came from. Now, if there's anything about that information you'd rather the rest of the world doesn't know, you may have a problem. AT&T, Sprint, T-Mobile, Verizon, they were all outed earlier this week for selling your location data. This is, I mean, it seems that every company that is tied to an app on our phones or that is tied to, now the phone companies themselves, any company that can figure out where we are all the time is selling that information. Any company that can figure out who we're talking to, what we're reading, what we're doing online, selling that information. We've lost net neutrality, so these very same telephone carriers, when you're using your phone as an internet browser, they now know everything you're doing. They now know what websites you've looked at. They now know, basically everything. And unless you've got a VPN, in which case your VPN provider knows, although, presumably they're more trustworthy than phone companies. But phone companies for years and years have been saying, cross our heart and hope to die, we're not going to track you. And it turns out they were. And they were making money off it. Now, AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile have come out and said, we're not going to do that anymore. Double pinky swear. Really? Do you trust these guys? It's time for some actual legislation, some laws that put tech back in the box. I mean, this has just gone completely out of control. An example of the ways that we could deal with this, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, you could do it with, for example, the tax code, even. You could say to the telecom companies and to the big tech companies that, it's not a deductible expense gathering and selling the information from your customers. Suddenly they lose all the tax benefits associated with even having employees who are doing this. I mean, that's a great way to ban things. They put John Dillender in jail for tax evasion. And here's an example of where that's happening. Jeanne Shaheen, the senator from New Hampshire, good progressive Democrat. Jeanne Shaheen has just sent out a press release that says, and I quote, "Have you noticed how it seems like every time you turn your TV on, there's another ad for prescription drugs? Drug companies are spending billions on these ads and inundating the airwaves. This aggressive advertising increases demand so that drug companies can continue to hike up drug prices. Meanwhile, many Granite Staters, particularly seniors, are having to make tough choices, often having to choose between expenses like bills and groceries and the medication they desperately need. What's worse, taxpayers are subsidizing these big pharma campaigns. Through a loophole in the tax code, drug companies are allowed to deduct the cost of advertising expenses from their federal taxes," writes Senator Jeanne Shaheen. "This scheme yields an incredible windfall for the drug companies, and it needs to end. That's why today I introduced legislation, the End Taxpayers Subsidies for Drug Ads Act, to close this egregious loophole in the tax code. It's long past time that Congress and the Trump administration got serious about addressing prescription drug costs, and this legislation would be a big first step forward. I'll continue to update you as I rally support for this legislation in Congress." Jeanne Shaheen. There are so many ways that if Congress had even the smallest amount of courage, we could be easily reining in the worst abuses of the telecom companies, of Facebook, of Google, of these other big tech companies. And hopefully we're going to begin doing that soon. And we can get our net neutrality back. The loss of that is just a travesty. Thanks again for supporting our program.